Good afternoon and welcome to the City Council meeting for the City of International Falls, Monday, March 18th, 2019. I would ask all to please arise and pledge allegiance to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I would ask the administrator to note the roll call with all members of the council present. Move to the agenda, and there are two additions to the agenda. Under new business, item number 6, the Legislation and Land Use Committee met, and they have a recommendation and a resolution, and then under reminders, the town hall meeting on recreation is Monday, March 25th. That's just a information piece. Council's pleasure with the agenda and the addition.
So moved.
Motion by Councillor Kraus to approve the agenda with the addition.
Second.
Second by Councillor Deitch. Discussion on the motion or the agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve the agenda signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion is carried. Thank you. Move to the minutes, and we have 3 sets of minutes. The first is the March 4th Committee of the Whole, Council Committee of the Whole meeting. Your pleasure with those minutes, please.
So moved.
Motion by Councillor Droba, second by Councillor Buller. Thank you. Discussion on the motion or the minutes? Hearing no discussion. Question?
Aye. Aye.
And I would vote yes. Motion is carried, and minutes are approved for March the 4th, Committee of the Whole. And then we have item 2 under minutes, and that's the regular City Council meeting of March the 4th.
Motion.
Motion by Councillor Deitch.
I'll second.
Second by Councillor Droba. Discussion? Question?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. I would vote yes. Motion is carried and minutes are approved. And the last item, number 3 under minutes, and that's the Committee of the Whole meeting on March the 11th.
So moved.
Motion by Councillor Buller to approve.
I'll second.
Second by Councillor Kraus. Discussion. Hearing none. Question?
Aye. Aye. Aye.
And I would vote yes. Motion is carried, and those minutes are approved also. Thank you. We'll move to the resolution on the payment of claims and transfers. And on transfers, we have to Fund Number 101 of the General Fund from the Water and Sewer Fund, $9,951.67, to the 401 Permanent Improvement Fund, $666,066, and to the 403 Reserve for Capital Outlay for Water and Sewer, $25,760.42. Under accounts payable claims for the City of International Falls, $538,285.33. Airport Commission claims of $7,866.46. And Library Board claims of $6,257.02. Council's pleasure with the adoption of the resolution approving the transfers and payment of claims.
Motion.
Motion by Councillor Deitch.
I'll second.
Second by Councillor Droba. Discussion on the motion or the resolution. Hearing no discussion, the chair would place the question on the resolution.
Aye. 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 Aye.
And I would vote yes. Motion is carried. The resolution is adopted, approving the transfers and the payment of claims. Thank you. Go to the audience. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to approach the council at this time that is not on the agenda? Please. Could you come up to the microphone here in the middle? That would be helpful, please. Yep. You state your name for the record, please.
Evan Johnson.
Evan Johnson, thank you.
Regarding the permanent development fund, I was curious what that was used for to start off with.
I'm not sure I quite heard your question. The permanent what?
To start off with, I was curious what the permanent development fund for the city was actually used for.
Permanent Improvement Fund?
Yep.
The Permanent Improvement Fund is for doing projects in the city. Could be on water and sewer, could be on streets, storm sewers, sidewalks. Those are permanent improvements that would be made to the city.
The second question would be, would that fund be used for something like covering the costs for clearing land for a proposed business or anything like that?
Not likely. It could be used to clean up some land. There might be some permanent improvement funds, but generally we have those also budgeted funds to do cleanup. But would likely not happen that we would use funds to clean up private property.
Mr. Mayor, may I follow up that?
Yes.
We do have the 809 fund, of the city, and I absolutely love that you're here getting information. It's fantastic to see youth involved in our community. Our 809 fund is our economic development fund, and we can use that in some capacity to help businesses come into our community. It isn't a direct amount of money that we would give a business, but we can help in some capacity with extending water and sewer to maybe those facilities, or we also have a revolving loan fund to help businesses get going in our community for some external repairs or fixes to the building as they come into the community. So we do have a fund for economic development in our community. It's called the 809 Fund.
I have one more question.
Please.
Are there any proposed or current plans to have an initiative to contact or bring any new large businesses into the city at all? Such as production or jobs or even a retail business, as Sears Holdings has also proposed Chapter 11 bankruptcy, which would be our main source of retail in town, closing.
With regard to new businesses, we work together, the city and the county are together in a economic development agency called the Couchiching Economic Development Authority. And so we work through that group. Two of us from here on the City Council, Councillor Droba and myself, represent the city on that board. And I don't know of any actual large firm. I know that we've had several close here in the community, but don't know of any directly that are coming. We've had contact with some interested parties with regard to possibly buying business here that was closed up, but that has not, at this time, proved fruitful.
Thank you.
May I follow up on that? So another thing that we have going on in our community, and Keita does it very well, is we try to work with the existing businesses that we have. Because as you just pointed out, getting those large businesses to our community is rather difficult. I mean, they have the entire United States or elsewhere that they could go and build their businesses. So one of the things that we try to do with Keita and the City of International Falls is we try to help our local businesses grow. And you can see that in a handful of areas in our community. We have Swanky Sweet Pea, which started on our main street of International Falls. Now they've moved out to Rainier, but when they moved out to Rainier, they got bigger and they started to do a more wholesale piece of their business. So they're actually growing. Although we don't see them here in International Falls, that is definitely a piece that comes back to our area, that the money is still coming into our community. We also have the cold weather out at cold weather testing, and slowly but surely that's grown into a huge industry up here. We have multiple facilities out at the airport. We have private sector, which is also doing cold weather testing in our community. So we're trying to utilize what we have in our community and try to build within, because it's easier for us to find the entrepreneurs of our community and give them the tools so that they can grow and hire within, so that they may be that next multi-million-dollar business, so that we're their home office rather than just another piece of the big corporate conglomerate. So yeah, we're doing everything in our power, and I'm sure we could do more, but we are definitely trying our best to try to build an economic future for our area.
To continue on that really quick, I was wondering, it seems like the youth generation, I would know this personally, as everybody I know wants to just leave town. Usually it's due to a lack of recreation or jobs. Mostly all we have is PCA, or you could work in customer service. But I've noticed that we've got 2 vacant hotels now, as well as I mentioned before, the small businesses can support some product, but Kmart definitely has products that other small businesses can't supply. So when that building becomes vacant, we're definitely just wondering what the plan is in that situation to keep the younger people here and to keep businesses like that from closing and becoming vacant, because the small businesses may be thriving for now until you have a decrease in population due to that sort of thing.
I think one of our goals as a council is to keep a full-service community here, because it's certainly what citizens and visitors would be looking for. I've had conversations with the Kmart Corporation and their leadership in Chicago, and they said this would be one of the last stores that they would ever close, and so hopefully that's the case, because I think the community does patronize that business very well. I would like to go back to your earlier question, and City Administrator, maybe you could respond to the work that you and Paul Nevenin did in responding to an interest that was sent to the committee and community previously.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor, Council. Yeah, Evan, periodically there's companies that do wish to expand. They'll send out requests for proposals. We did entertain one from a business that wanted to locate somewhere in Minnesota. And so they're going to start out and incrementally grow their employment base. And so, again, the City of International Falls was the recipient of the request for proposal. And as Council Member Groba and Mayor Anderson pointed out, we coordinate closely with KEDA on economic development ventures. So the executive director of KEDA and myself worked on preparing a response to this particular company's inquiry in terms of, what's the potential for labor, what kind of incentives exist, what kind of lots or existing buildings might exist in the community that could be converted for their use. And so we respond with a proposal back to them. And typically what will happen is a company will entertain and review all the proposals that they receive and then try and select the top few that best meet their needs. And then one, but sometimes multiple find the best deal and what's going to work out best for them. So we did respond to one. I believe it was due on March 6th, and so we sent a proposal in, and we would expect to hear in a fairly short time frame as to whether or not they're interested in a visit here to look at the sites that we made available to them. We actually proposed sites. 2 of them were in the city. One was outside of the city that met their follow-up inquiry, and then we can pursue some closer discussion with them and offer any incentives that might project happen here in International Falls.
Can I ask one more question in regards to that? Does the city or the Kuching Economic Development Authority ever actively reach out to companies, like inquiries like, for example, maybe Target Corporation and building a store here if the Kmart does in fact close? Do these boards ever actually actively reach out, or we just wait for inquiries to come in?
I think Mr. Nevenin, who is the Executive Director of the Kuching Economic Development Authority, does go to conferences where developers are and does take and market International Falls here again, you may get an inquiry sometime, you may not. So those are very hit and miss, and I think Councillor Droba said it very well. Probably 80% of your economic development comes from within the community, and 20% would come from without. So there's probably 3 or 4 times the chance that you would get someone from within the community to do something before you get someone from the outside to invest in your community. Thank you. Thanks for your interest. Anyone else in the audience that wishes to approach the council at this time? And if not, there's another opportunity at the close of the meeting for additional discussions. Thank you. We'll move on the agenda to opening of bids and quotes, and we have item number 1 is to consider proposals for professional services to install the audio-visual system for the City Council chambers and approve payment from the Mayor Council Department Professional Services. City Administrator, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, we've received 2 proposals. One was from Small Town Tech, and that again was in response to our request for proposals that we sent out. And this was a scope of work and a proposal to try and respond to our needs for audio-visual communications equipment in the City Council chambers. We have received some complaints in the past about the audio quality, and so the City Council authorized sending out a request for proposals, which we did. It was posted and published in the newspaper, and in response to that request for proposal, we received 2. The one I pointed out from Small Town Tech, it's dated March 12th and signed by Eric Kulig from Small Town Tech. And so their proposal is included in here, and it lays out what they're proposing, an estimated proposal cost, and an overview of the work that they would perform in response to this RFP. The second proposal we received was from NLFX Professional, and they too outlined a scope of work, provided some specifications for upgrading the speaker systems that we have in the room and microphones, and that scope of work and response is identified here. I believe their office, they're based out of Bemidji, Minnesota, and Sam Wyke was the system designer and the person preparing this particular proposal. So they've laid out a couple of different approaches. I would say that NLFX's appears to have, it's more expensive, but it also includes providing a little bit more in the way of equipment and services than what the proposal that we received from Small Town Tech. So I think if the council is comfortable in having reviewed this information, if you're comfortable in making a decision and making an award, we can do that. If you have further questions or you'd like it examined closer, we can refer it to a committee to consider and bring back to the City Council with a recommendation about which one of these you want to select. So I guess I would leave it open to the council's direction as to how you'd like to proceed, or if there's any questions, I can try and answer those.
Questions for the City Administrator then with regard to the 2 proposals that were received? Councilor Droba.
If we were to send this to a committee to discuss and weigh out the options, what committee would you recommend we send it to?
Given our current committee structure, I'd probably recommend Public Works, only because you also deal with infrastructure issues and facility issues, and this would be a facility upgrade. So we've talked about other issues such as lighting and other kinds of upgrades to our building facilities. So I would probably refer it to the Public Works Committee.
Follow-up question, or not even a question, just a comment. This is outside my spectrum of knowledge base, but my concern with I like the dollar amount of Small Town Techs. I like the fact that there's going to be additional speakers and utilizing what we already have in our facility, which our big issue is not video, it's the audio on the video. And I guess my concern is really if we're just installing 4 new speakers and whatever goes along with it, are we going to guarantee that those speakers are going to be enough to fix the sound, because we're still going to use the camera in the back? Secondly, as I read the other proposal, they as well are going to 4 speakers and essentially the same type of a system. It's just they're getting a new camera system in the back. I don't have an issue with the camera, I have the issue with the sound, and I just want to make sure that if we do take the low bid, I don't want to take the low bid just because it's the low bid. It has to fix the problems that we have, which is sound. And I guess I'm just a little concerned right now, without going any deeper. The speakers need to fix the camera, and I want to make sure if we take the low bid that that's going to fix our problem.
Other questions for the city administrator with regard to the quotes? Councilor Kraus, please.
Administrator Anderson, do we have this in the budget to spend that kind of money?
This request for proposal went out. It is an unbudgeted item, so we did not budget separately when we were preparing the 2019 budget process and we went through the preliminary budgeting. We did not include funds to do this kind of an upgrade. This was something that came up as a result of numerous complaints received by city councilors, and so we, at your direction, we sent this request for proposal out and identified basically 2 options for looking at upgrading the sound system, and then looking at potentially the second option was looking at upgrading the video system in addition to the sound system equipment, and to see what was the best fit and what we could achieve for different rates. And as Councilor Droba pointed out, the proposal from NLFX is a little bit more expensive. I think it includes remote mics or mics that you can move around the room in addition to some iPads for the council to use, and that was outside of the scope of the request for proposal that we had sent out.
Follow-up? And so then a follow-up question would be, did either of these companies come in and look at the existing system or the acoustics of the room or the camera to see if it would be compatible?
Yes, I met on 2 occasions with representatives from Small Town Tech. Sam Wyke had called and talked to me. I spoke with him twice. With the RFP, you might recall that we had pictures of the room. We actually sent out specs for the existing equipment that we had that we were able to find online, and sent that information out, so that, as well as photos of the microphones, the speakers, the room, the lighting, the camera, and all of that was sent out with our request for proposal. So they had a pretty good sense for the age of our current equipment and what we were using to try and rebroadcast our meetings.
Thank you.
Question.
Councilor Deitch, please.
Unless I'm reading this wrong, and maybe I am, there's a substantial difference in the 2 costs, is that correct?
Yes.
Something like $30,000?
It's close to that, yes.
I would, for what I've read with Small Town Tech, for that difference in money, I would say Small Town Tech would be hands down.
Please, Councilor Buller.
Small Town Tech is also addressing our concerns of what we have. It's the mic system. It's the audio that we need to get changed, and that's what they're working with. So other additions are just things that we don't need. How old are these microphones?
I can't speak to how long we've had them. I don't know how long we've had them. There's been some time.
2003.
Councilor Kraus, please.
And I do see on the final page of Small Town Tech's proposal, I do see, if you look at item 7, integrate existing camera. So there has been some thought to integrating with the existing system, which the video is not an issue and hasn't been an issue from anybody that I've talked to, and I think listening to what everybody else is saying. So I too, if we were to move on something like this, I would be in favor of Small Town Tech's proposal as well.
I guess my question to the city administrator and maybe I should know this, but what amount of money is in the professional services account for the mayor and council?
I did look at that. I don't remember off the top of my head. It wasn't, I want to say it's 10,000 for the year, but I can't say with certainty. I did not bring my budget with me for the meeting. I apologize. I don't know.
It wasn't budgeted, but there is
No.
funds that have been in that account for some time?
Right, and I had talked about the professional services line item would be the appropriate line item to take the expenditure from, but again, we didn't set aside money in our 2019 budget for the mayor council department to do that. We do have some professional service monies budgeted in the city administrator budget, so it could just come out of the general fund reserve from past unspent monies. That's a possibility too, but we should show the expenditure in a particular line item, and we're suggesting that it would be the mayor council professional services line item. We haven't separately budgeted revenues for that in 2019. It would come out of the general fund reserve.
I would make the motion, if applicable, Mayor, to accept the small town tech quote for the upgrades to the sound and system. That's my motion.
And the funds ever come from where?
The professional services from the mayor and council. And if there's any monies that do not meet that need, come out of the general fund.
Okay, we have a motion by Councillor Droba to accept the quote of Small Town Tech at $8,635.83. And the monies are to come from mayor and council account for professional services, and if insufficient funds, the rest would come from the general fund reserve.
Second.
Second by Councillor Deitch. Discussion on the motion or the accepting of the bid. Councillor Carlson.
One final question, Administrator Anderson. Would we be required to pay tax?
I don't think so, but sometimes for professional services, I can't say there's that particular law changes so much. We typically include tax just to cover the council authorization for it. A lot of times we're exempt from having to pay that tax, but it depends on what it's for. And it varies. The library is exempt from some things that we're not for, so I can't say with specificity, but we generally ask for council authorization to pay the sales tax. For some things we do have to, some we don't.
We could potentially save additional funds if it turns out to be non-taxable. Thank you.
For this type of purchase, Mr. Mayor, I can verify that with staff and send an email out and let you know if this would be subject to a sales tax or not.
There's no sales, the sales tax that's in there is $418, so they did apply a sales tax,
point,
and so there might be a difference of $400. Well, further discussion by the council. And this is unbudgeted. I don't think it's a high priority. I certainly am not going to support spending $8,000 on the sound system. I think if we speak into the speakers, it'll be sufficient. I think they can hear those here in the council chambers and those on the camera. So I would intend to vote against this. Not that I think Small Town Tech has not given us a reasonable proposal. I just do not see that it being a priority. Thank you. Further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, the chair would then place the question on the motion to accept the quote of Small Town Tech at $8,635.83, and that money to come from the professional services account of the mayor and council.
Aye.
Aye.
And I would vote no, there being 4 for the motion and 1 opposed. The motion carries, and approval is given to Small Town Tech to do the work. Thank you. Move to the consent agenda, and there are 2 items under the consent agenda. The first is to allow necessary expenses for 2 Public Works employees to attend a electric safety in the workplace seminar in Bemidji on April 9. And the second is to approve expenses for travel for 2 Public Works employees to attend an equipment demonstration in Duluth on March 20. Council's pleasure with the consent agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Councilor Droba to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Second by Councilor Buller. There being no discussion on the consent agenda, place the question.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
I would vote yes. Motion is carried. Consent agenda is approved. Thank you. Move to new business, and the first item under new business is for council information, and that's the open book meeting to discuss property valuations and assessments at the County Assessor's Office on Wednesday, May 9, 2018, from 9 a.m. to noon. So any questions with regard to that information that the city administrator has placed in the council packet? Please, Councilor Droba.
I would just like to make a note to those watching on KCC TV or people that are interested. This is the time to talk about the assessed value of your house, or business, not the truth and taxation meeting at the end of the year. This is the time to go in and speak with the county assessor on the value of your property, whether it's home or business. This is the time, not once we have our budgets laid out and how we're moving forward with our budgets. So now is the time to go and speak with the county assessor.
Thank you. Go to item number 2 under new business, and that's to approve the International Falls Bass Championship use of the Smoky Bear Park, August 22nd, 23rd, and 24th of 2019. Mr. Matt Buller, please. Thank you for being here, Matt.
My name's Matt Buller, and I'm here representing the IFBC board today, and I'm here to request on behalf of the IFBC board, all its volunteers and participants of the 15th annual International Falls Bass Championship for permission to use Smoky Bear Park on August 22nd, 23rd, and 24th, with teardown coming on the 25th.
Moved.
Motion by Councilor Kraus to approve the use of Smoky Bear Park for the 15th Annual International Falls Bass Championship.
Second.
Second by Councilor Deitch. Discussion on the motion or the use of the park. Council.
I'll be abstaining from this because I am on the bass board also.
Thank you. Please, Councilor Droba.
By chance, do you know Ted Brokaw?
I do. We have a fairly open communication line between the
It would
two of
mean the
us.
world to me if you guys stay in great conversation leading up to this event.
I have already been there.
Because if people don't know, I've had some issues with what happens over there, and I greatly appreciate you coming to the Public Works meeting and having a discussion on how some of the problems we've had in the past you see as well, and you'd like to see those fixed as well. So I will vote for this, and I will look forward to having a lot of the issues we've had in the past corrected. So thank you.
Any further questions or discussion with regard to the motion to approve the use of Smoky Bear Park for the 15th Annual International Falls Bass Championship? Hearing none, the chair would place the question.
Aye.
Abstain? I would vote yes. There being 4 for the motion and 1 abstention, the motion carries and approval is given for the use of the park. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Item number 3 is also in conjunction with the Bass Championship, and that's a application for an exempt permit to sell raffle tickets for a drawing to be held on Saturday, August the 24th at Smoky Bear Park. Council's pleasure with the resolution on approving the application for a permit.
Motion.
Motion by Councilor Deitch.
Second.
Second by Councilor Droba. Discussion on the motion or the resolution? Hearing none. Question?
Aye.
Abstain for the same reason.
I would vote yes, there being 4 for the motion and 1 abstention. Motion carries, and the resolution is adopted, approving the exempt permit for the raffle tickets. Thank you. And item number 4 under new business is also in conjunction with the International Falls Bass Championship, and that's an application for a 1 to 4 day temporary on-sale liquor license for Smoky Bear Park for the same days, August 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. Council's pleasure with the approving that permit for on-sale liquor license.
I'd move the resolution.
Motion by Councilor Droba. The second by Councilor Kraus. Discussion.
Aye. Oh, I'm sorry.
Discussion on the motion or the resolution.
Jumped the gun.
Seeing, hearing none. Question.
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
And I would vote yes, there being 4 for the motion and 1 abstention. The motion carries, adopting the resolution and approving the on-sale liquor license for Smoky Bear Park for the International Falls Bass Championship. Thank you. Item number 5 under new business is approval of the concurrence or with the mayor's appointments to the Ad Hoc Commercial Residential Building and Property Blight Advisory Committee, and that would be effective April the 1st, 2019 through March 31st of 2020. And didn't know how consistent this group might meet or how active they might be. Hopefully they're going to be very, very strong. So I've set it up for a 2-year period. Hopefully the council sees that as, and it can be renewed at that time, could be made into a permanent committee, but just at this time it made it an ad hoc committee, and I know that they will be dealing with blight and other items with regard to improving the looks of our city. So council's pleasure with the approval of the appointments.
Make the motion.
Motion by Councilor Deitch.
Second.
Second by Councilor Buller. Yes, for 2 years. So they would.
It says 21, you had said 20.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, 2020, March 31 of 2021. Thank you. Further questions? Councilor Droba.
Just refresh my memory. Is this the committee that puts on the community cleanup at, oh, this is the same group? Okay.
This is the same committee, yes. It has done it for the past 2 years. And I think it was more a, not even an ad hoc committee, I think it was just more of a group of citizens as well as councilors that participate in that event.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Kraus, please.
May I add that we appoint someone as the chair of this committee, at least for the first 1 or 2 meetings until the committee itself can create its own governance, just as somebody to get the meetings put together?
So you can designate a chair from that group. You want me to do that?
I would nominate, you want it?
Oh, no, that's fine.
I don't.
Okay.
No, but I would nominate Councilor Deitch.
Sure. As mayor, I would appoint Councilor Deitch as chair of the Commercial Residential Building and Property Blight Advisory Committee. And if he decides he wants to hold, or the committee wants to hold elections, they can, but otherwise you will begin the process of being chair.
Sounds fine.
Please.
I just feel that it's important that we have some leadership just to start, just to get it going, and then once the committee starts to meet, can certainly change that, but just to get it, to have a point person to get the ball rolling, I think is really important at this point.
Councilor Droba, please.
I just have one more question. I'm happy about this group. They've done the community cleanup in the past, and I just wonder, is this going to be a group that brings recommendations to the city council for us to act on or to send to land use and legislation? I want to make sure that we don't just have a group out there that is empowered to, help us fix blight for commercial and residential, and then them bring recommendations to our city council, and then this board just kind of hum and haw. I don't know if we really want to do that. I just wonder what the scope of this committee is and what their responsibilities are. I'm very fine with what they've done in the past, and I think what they've done is great. I'd love to see them go to the next level, but is this going to be a committee that comes back to the city council and makes recommendations on how we move forward? Is this a group that has been empowered by the city to take action in our community? I just kind of want to know what the committee is.
I would assume that the ad hoc would go to the land committee before it comes to there. Like there's a middleman right in between there. Great. It would weed some of the problems out, or maybe some of the concerns that are not a council concern. Is that correct?
I would see that exactly, Councilor Deitch. I think in the past, I think if they have recommendations with regard to ordinance changes, it would come to the city council, be referred to land use and legislation, so that they might consider those and bring recommendations. Likewise, I think they would be working with the housing inspector, Fire Chief Adam Anasa, and the building inspector Kelly Myers on issues and understanding if they're a zoning issue, if it's a public blight issue under the ordinances. So I think that there's work to be done there. And then thirdly, what Councilor Droba mentioned earlier, and that would be to conduct a annual cleanup of the community in which citizens can participate and bring forth items to be disposed of. We can certainly write up that scope.
I'm actually very excited about this. I think it will take a little bit off of land use and legislation. If they can come to that committee with ideas, it'll make that, it'll streamline that process a little bit. It'll make it easier for change to happen. It doesn't have to be discussed in that meeting. Then they can have their priorities, and I say they, I'm on this group, but we can come with our priorities to that committee, and then that committee can then present to the council. I think it just takes one thing off of that committee. That is a big thing, but I like that idea.
Very good. Further questions or discussions with regard to the appointments? Question?
Aye.
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 And I would vote yes. Motion is carried, and appointments are approved. Thank you. Speaking of legislation and land use committee recommendations, item number 6 on the under new business in the council agenda, supporting action to ensure compliance with the ordinance blight standards. Committee has a recommendation.
Do you want me to read the recommendation?
No, you can just you can maybe summarize the
Okay, land use
resolution.
Sure. Land use and legislation met last week. Had quite a lengthy discussion about blight and a couple other items, and I think after speaking to the housing inspector and the building inspector, we found that the laws that the city currently has on the books are pretty clear and good, may I say. So our recommendation is to move forward with enforcing said laws to the fullest extent of that, which would include if the ticket process all the way up to the prosecution process needs to be taken for any and all violations. So that's our recommendation right now, is to enforce any and all blight ordinances on the books equally.
There is a motion then to adopt the resolution with the recommendations to ensure compliance with the blight standards.
So moved.
Motion by Councillor Kraus.
Second.
Second by Councillor Deitch. Discussion on the resolution. Councillor Droba.
So I've heard from a handful of people in our community that were either extremely excited that we were going to start enforcing as hard as we can, and on the flip side, how ridiculous it is that the city would want to start essentially taking people to court over blight. And I think what our community needs to understand is this isn't step one. You're going to get a ticket. You're going to get fined. Step one is going to be tagging the properties, letting people know that there's a problem. There is going to be a follow-up. There is then going to be a citation. You know, this is not the day you show up, you're getting a ticket. There's going to be a process, and more likely than not, they won't be criminally prosecuted until after 30 days of not making any movement of the change. Is that relatively accurate?
Probably even more than 30 days, but yes, they will have plenty of opportunity to correct the problem.
So this is not, this is trying to handle our community, trying to clean up the community, and I want to give a huge thanks to both Councillor Deitch and Councillor Kraus for moving this forward. And you know, it's been quite a while that I've been on City Council, and we've said our rules are not strong enough, and we just can't enforce blight. And with this resolution, I think we shall be able to enforce a little bit more so than we have in the past. So thank you, gentlemen.
I think it's worth the notice. I think we need to possibly look at sending a letter out with our water bills outlining what we might be looking at here so that folks know what we're talking about in the way of a blighted community. I think the housing inspector, the fire chief at our meeting of the Council of the Whole pointed out that last summer we sent out 148 letters of notice to property owners within the city that had blighted conditions. I know that we had vehicles that were towed. I know that some folks removed abandoned vehicles. I know that we've done a number of things in the past, maybe not enough, and we still have more blight to clean up, but I know that the fire chief and I visited some homes on removing garbage that they were storing in their garage, and so those are the things that we need to have citizens become more aware of, that it's not going to be acceptable in this community, and there could be, after some time, as Councillor Droba and the city attorney pointed out, after some time of warning and notice, you could be fined.
Mr. Mayor?
Please.
And I think that the primary purpose of this resolution is to just let the city employees know that the council is backing your action. So as in talking to staff, we found that maybe they didn't feel that they should be enforcing, and we are now saying we are enforcing and follow it, and we're going to follow up with you. So I think that's the purpose of the resolution, is to
Greater notice.
Greater notice, make it known that we're ready to move forward.
Very good. Good work. Further discussions? Not, the chair would place the question on the recommendation of the adopting the resolution.
Aye.
Aye.
And I would vote yes. Motion is carried. Resolution is adopted on the ensuring compliance with the blight standards. Thank you. Item number 7 is also a resolution approving Minnesota participating addendum contract number 147347 for wireless communication and equipment and authorized signatures. City Administrator, can you share with us about this?
Sure. Briefly, Mr. Mayor, the city had entered into an agreement some time ago with Verizon on having more affordable wireless services through Verizon due to us being a public entity. And the state of Minnesota has entered into an agreement and participating addendum, which is this contract. The state of Nevada is actually the lead state, and all but 3 states are participating to try and get further reductions in wireless communication costs for public entities. So this NASBO or NASPO Value Point Master Agreement is the contract that exists for the city to participate with the state of Minnesota in having more affordable wireless communication costs, basically our cell phone costs. But we also use iPads and other for wireless communications related to our Public Works Department and GIS system and things. So we can get reduced costs with this. We need to adopt this resolution and then move forward with participating with the state of Minnesota to have some cost savings to the city. My understanding, but we have calls in to verify that, is that the existing agreement would be null and void with this change by the state of Minnesota to go through this.
Council's pleasure with the resolution then, approving the addendum to the contract.
We'll move for the sake of discussion.
Okay, motion by Councilor Kraus to adopt the resolution.
Second.
Aye. Councilor Deitch has seconded the motion. Discussion, please.
So I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. So we don't know that our cost is going to go down? We don't know if we're going to end up getting into another agreement or if this nullifies our agreement? I guess I missed that.
Well, the costs will go down over what they are, and they went down when we went with the government contract through Verizon before we had business agreements, and the costs were higher than what we have now with Verizon. The costs will again be decreased with this new national contract that all but 3 states are participating in. What I don't have is the actual agreement that we need to sign. This is a copy that the state has signed with Cellco Partnership, which is doing business as Verizon Wireless. So I need to get the document for us to sign, but they need this resolution endorsing and allowing us to participate under the state contract.
Does this tie us in right away then or not? If there becomes a problem, but are we tied in after we
don't envision it. This would allow us to participate and authorize the mayor and I to sign whatever agreement needs to be signed to participate in this. So this is authorizing it, and we don't know of any problems. This is a better deal for the city than the deal that we have now.
I guess this is maybe a sidebar issue, but I know Verizon was, or someone representing Verizon was in the community with the county zoning committee, and they got 2 sites approved, one on the west side of International Falls and one just going up the lake on Highway 11 East about 3 or 4 years ago. Neither site has been utilized for a tower. This doesn't give us any leverage in that kind of a situation.
Mr. Mayor, you're correct. There was public hearings, and I attended the public hearing that either the County Board of Zoning Adjustments or the County Planning Commission conducted. And you're correct. Either conditional use permits and/or variances were authorized for towers in the two locations you mentioned. The conditional use permit didn't have any expiration date on it. So for whatever reason, and I don't have any knowledge of why, but they actually haven't pursued the construction of the two towers. I also heard that there was recently people looking at an AT&T tower east of the city of International Falls that's been constructed but not operational, and that there's been some discussions with AT&T that they're ready to fire that one up, and then but we're waiting on Frontier, and Frontier says we're ready to go. We're waiting on AT&T, so everybody's pointing the finger at everybody else. And again, that's outside of the scope of my jurisdiction. I just know that from discussion. So I don't see that there's any leverage for us. This is a benefit to us to participate with Verizon, and again, I think the service and the coverage would only be better with the construction of the two new towers, but in either event, we're still going to get more affordable rates with wireless services than what we have now.
Thank you. I apologize for taking us off on a tangent here. Further questions or discussion with regard to the resolution approving the contract, master agreement? Hearing none, question?
Aye.
I would vote yes. Motion is carried. Resolution is adopted, and the participating contract with the state of Minnesota is approved. Thank you. Item number 8 under new business is to approve a independent contractor agreement with Jacob Clarity, effective February the 25th, 2019. And City Administrator, that's under your jurisdiction.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you pointed out, this is an independent contractor agreement with between the city and Mr. Clarity. Mr. Clarity was our information systems administrator. He's accepted a job at another local business, and in the interim between the time that we were able to hire somebody else to fill that position and the time that he left, which was February 22nd, we want to have this independent contractor agreement where he can come in and assist us on an as-needed basis, and we would pay him on an hourly basis. And we entered into the same agreement with Mr. Clarity's predecessor, and so we're just asking that the City Council adopt this. Mr. Clarity had done several upgrades to our there was many of our microcomputers were upgraded from a Windows 7 to Windows 10, which will no longer be supported by Microsoft after January 14th of 2020. So he's upgraded some of that, and then he's also improved the speed with many of the hardware that we have for some of our computers. So we think it's better to enter into this agreement with Mr. Clarity. He's local, and he can respond much quicker than the existing independent contractor we have. So I'm recommending that we move forward with this, with the sidebar comment that under term on the first page there is a typo error, and there's a few words that need to be excluded in the second to the bottom line there. So we just ask that the council approve it with that deletion.
Please.
We know he's very competent. He worked well for us before. His hourly rate is very reasonable for a professional the way he is. I would think this would be a positive move for us rather than hiring somebody full-time as we had previously. Wasn't he on full-time?
We're still looking to hire someone
okay.
full-time.
Take that as a motion, Councilor Deitch, to approve this contract agreement with Mr. Clarity to continue to serve us until such time as we have a full-time individual. Okay, we have a motion by Councilor Deitch.
I'll second.
Second by Councilor Kraus to enter into a contractor agreement with Jacob Clarity. And what were the words you wish to delete here under item number 3, City Administrator?
In the second line from the bottom, in the second line, it talked about with terms of this agreement until December 31st of 2020, then there's a period, and then there's some additional language that says BER 19 and conclude November 20th, 2018. That should be deleted from the agreement.
So does the sentence continue with however from the until December 31, 2020? Is that a comma there then, instead of a period? Or is it a capital H?
Both of those bottom lines should be deleted.
Okay.
Neither one of them are necessary. It should end at December 31st of 2020.
Very good. Thank you. All right. You have that adjustment to the agreement. It's okay with the maker of the motion? Councilor Deitch? That's okay to
Yes.
remove that?
Correct.
Thank you. And okay with the second? Thank you. Further questions or discussions with regard to the contractor agreement?
Mr. Mayor, may I?
Councilor Drobo, please.
How long was Jacob with us? He was with us for 5 months?
Started November 1st and his last day was February 22nd.
So 3 months. So with our previous IT guy, he had been here for years and years, and when he left, he had a vast knowledge of our system and everything that we had going on. I don't think that, I'm fine with Jacob, that's not the issue, but a lot of the stuff that you mentioned that he could be doing, we could contract out with anybody in town. I mean, to upgrade windows, there's nothing specific to our network that we couldn't hire anybody else. I just wonder why we would get someone who has moved on to another job, trying to pull him back when we have businesses in town, Small Town Tech, Sound North. There's multiple businesses that offer those exact same services as contract, to have an individual contract with one specific person. I just question why we would. Our previous IT person had been here for years and knew the intricacies of our network and who's doing what, and I don't know if that's so much the case with Mr. Clarity. He had been here for such a short term.
Mr. Mayor, the first 4 to 6 weeks of Mr. Clarity's time here, a significant portion of that was spent becoming accustomed to what we had for servers, backup servers. He had also created a virtual server that we could use as backup to provide extra backup in the event that we had some problems. So there's some work that he's done, carried on from the work that we had done previously. This agreement doesn't really prevent us from contacting the previous employee. So this is to try on an as-needed basis. If we need work that the administrator of the system has to do and we don't have the technical capabilities to do that, we can call on Jacob to do it. He's in town, he can be here when he concludes his business day at his existing job and help us out, rather than have to work with a contractor that works remotely, can't be here on site, and again, isn't as intimately familiar of the changes that Jacob had made while he was here. And Jacob is familiar with the system that we had because he spent a day and a half training with the previous employee. So I think this is probably the best way to maintain the most continuity in services and be able to help us on a short notice basis if anybody has individual problems with their software, with their hardware, or with the network, that we can bring them in and take care of it quick and easy and relatively affordably.
Useful.
Other questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll place the question on the approval of the agreement.
Aye.
I have a vote yes. Motion is carried, and agreement with Mr. Clarity is approved. Thank you. Item number 9 under new business is a number of recommendations from the Public Works and Infrastructure Committee. The first is the inflow and infiltration and elimination agreement that the city would have with the North Kuching Area Sanitary District.
As a member of that, of Public Works, I would move this for adoption.
Motion by Councillor Droba to adopt the inflow and infiltration investigation and elimination agreement with the North Couchiching Sanitary District and those changes that have been outlined.
Also, as a member on that committee, I'll second it.
Second by Councillor Buller. Discussion. Hearing none, Chair would place the question on approving the agreement to be submitted to North Couchiching Sanitary District.
Aye.
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 And I would vote yes. Motion is carried and the agreement is approved. Thank you. Item B under recommendation, and that's to allow the Kerry Park Arena use for the Elementary School Carnival Committee on May 30th, set up on the 29th at no cost, with just cleanup by the school. And have someone here that wishes to speak to that. Brittany?
Yes.
Please. Putting another carnival together.
Yes, another one. So I'm Brittany Aldine. I'm a Falls Elementary School teacher, and I'm just here on behalf of Falls Elementary School on the Carnival Committee. I'm looking for the approval of the use of Kerry Park Arena for the end of the school year carnival that takes place each school year. I know in the past we've done it at Bronco Arena. Last year was our first year we did it at Kerry Park. And our school and the committee just liked the setup a lot better of Kerry Park and kind of having it as a destination to drive to bring the students to. And I know last year we used it and there was no problems, and we were looking at hopefully being able to use it again on May 29th, which would be when the setup would be, and then May 30th would be when the actual carnival takes place, and then we would do the cleanup that same day.
You've heard the request. Council's pleasure with that?
So moved.
Motion by Councillor Kraus to approve the use at no cost to the school district.
Second.
Second by Councillor Buller. Questions or discussion for Brittany or?
One of the main concerns that we had, not with your group necessarily, but with all groups that use the Kerry Park Arena, was the cleanup. Mm-hmm. We had met with several city officials, and they say people come in, they use it, and they do a fine job with their program, but when they leave quite a mess behind, whether it be cleaning the bathrooms, picking up their trash. Mm-hmm. This would be one of our concerns that we would want to make sure that you guys handled, that it wasn't thrown back on city employees.
So last year what we did is we did bring over a couple of custodians with us, and so we would plan on doing that again this school year. So.
Thank you. Councillor Droba, please.
And I would like to go on the other end of that one. I would really like at least one of our members of Public Works to walk through the building two days before and do a walkthrough and see what problems we have in the facility before they even get into it, because I think we have to be knowledgeable on what we're giving out to our community so we know what we're getting as well. So I'd really like to see some of our at least one or two Public Works employees walk through the facility and make sure that it's habitable for the youth.
Councillor Buller, please.
Was last year your first year, you said?
At Kerry Park, correct, yes.
Were there supplies like cords and all that? Is there something that you would need added to that?
No, we were able to use everything that we had in the past. We've been doing the carnival now for 5 to 6 years, and last year was our first year of that. And we just bring all of our supplies over that we needed. And I know we did speak with Betty Bergstrom beforehand, and also is it Nick Olson, I think is the one that works over there. And he was there if needed, if we needed anything too. So
we had someone from the recreation.
He wasn't there the whole time, but
Yep, he's the
beforehand and everything to make sure everything was ready to go. Yep.
Very good. Thank you. Further questions or discussion? Question on the motion then?
Aye.
Aye.
I would vote yes. Motion is carried, and approval is given for use of Cary Park, and good luck with your carnival again this year. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Item C under number 9 is a resolution, and that's with the Couchiching County Highway Department on their reconstruction of County State Aid 24, which is 2nd Avenue East, from County State Aid Highway 47, 15th Street to 19th Street. And that resolution and plan are in the packet. Your pleasure with that, adopting that resolution.
So moved.
Motion by Councilor Droba to adopt the resolution.
Second.
Second by Councilor Kraus. Question? Chair will place the question on adoption of the resolution. Yes, motion is carried. Resolution is adopted, and the supporting the plans for the reconstruction of County State Aid 24, 2nd Avenue East. Thank you. And the last item, D under 9, is to approve the sidewalk and trail plan and map for the insertion into the draft comprehensive plan.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Councilor Deitch.
I'll second.
Second by Councilor Droba. Discussion. Please.
With this information going into our comprehensive plan, when do we plan on receiving the comprehensive plan? I realize we're still looking for January 2018.
Mr. Mayor, in addition to the updates for the housing section of the comprehensive plan, which I have not seen from our consultant yet, this information will be sent to them. The final piece that I envision needing to send to them would be updated maps, and just maps trying to confirm with the new city council what policies do we want to have in our comprehensive plan document for annexation. The city's already identified some properties to be included in annexation. I have submitted a recommendation to the municipal adjustments unit, and they've got some questions regarding the property and the maps that we submitted, so I need to coordinate with the city attorney on that, but I don't have a specific date. I think the final piece that I want council information on is to find out exactly what we want to reflect in maps and or in policy statements to incorporate in that document. And that's the last piece I think that they're looking for from us. They'll incorporate those revisions in a draft document and send it back for our project steering team. I hope to give a final stamp of approval to the text and everything that's in there, and then submit that to the city council. Regarding process, the comprehensive plan requires that we provide all adjacent jurisdictions with a minimum of 30 days to review and comment on our draft comprehensive plan before we can conduct a public hearing on it. And we do need to conduct a public hearing, which would be done by the Planning Commission of the city, and then the Planning Commission would make a recommendation to the City Council for ultimate approval of the comprehensive plan. As part of that work, again, for a refresher, is not only are we updating the comprehensive plan, but we're updating the land use regulations, which is Chapter 11 of the City Code, and the subdivision regulations in the City Code. So WSB subcontracted with our comprehensive plan consultant, and we have a draft of that document done now. So that would be reviewed by the Planning Commission and the project steering team as well.
Further questions or discussion with regard to the sidewalk and trail plans or the comprehensive plan? Hearing none, Chair would place the question on approval of the sidewalk and trail plans for inclusion in the comprehensive plan.
Aye.
Aye.
I would vote yes. Motion is carried, and approval of the trail and sidewalks is approved. Thank you. Any other business to come under new business? Oh, yes. The Councilor Deitch and Councilor Buller would like to switch places. Councillor Deitch would like to serve on the Legislation and Land Use Committee, and Councillor Buller would like to represent the city on the North Kuching Area Sanitary District. So I would like to make those two changes with the council approval.
So moved.
Motion by
I'll second.
second by Kraus. Discussion?
That is the best thing that's happened on this city council all year.
Got me off of that board committee or what?
Well, to be honest with you, when we were at that committee meeting and it came up that there was some issues with blight and just off my memory, I thought it was you two that were on land use and legislation. I think that's how the ball got rolling down the hill. That's who was on that committee. And I think
triggered it.
And I think your knowledge of public works and your background is fantastic for the city on North Cooch.
I realized too when you had that committee meeting that I was the one that should have been on there, but I didn't say anything because I felt Leon should be on it too, so I just let it go.
Thanks for that.
Very good. No further discussion? Question?
Aye.
And I would vote yes. Change in the committee structure is approved. Thank you. Further under new business? We'll move to reports of boards, committees, and department heads. City Administrator, please.
Mayor, one item, I had a conversation with Jim Stavseth. Jim is a board member on the Forest Hills Cemetery Association board, and he just inquired as to the status of the city in approving their request for funds for 2019. I indicated that the council has, I think, approved $5,000, if my memory serves me correctly, but that the city council also wanted to have conversations with the cemetery board about the city council or the city having representation on their board so that we could have better communication link and a liaison between what's happening on the Cemetery Association board and the city's contribution of monies to that. And so I think as part of that conversation, I did indicate to him that I would bring it up at the city council meeting here, and I'm looking for some direction from the city council. I indicated to him that if this is something that the mayor would want to make an appointment to somebody to serve on their board, if there's multiple people, or if the council as a group wants to have a joint meeting with the Cemetery Association board to talk about all the issues, because I understand that there's been some comments over the last few years about the condition of the cemetery, the drainage issues which make it difficult to mow the lawn out there at certain times of the year, the condition of the access roads out there. I've heard some complaints about not being able to get burials on weekends because they have to have a consultant. So there's a number of operational issues as well as just conditions of the cemetery that my reading of the city council was that we want to have some conversations with. So I'm looking for direction from the city council. I did indicate to him that our next meeting was on April 1st, and so if we could resolve who potentially would be appointed to the Cemetery Association board from the city, and then if you want to have a meeting in the interim to decide what the issues are and have a conversation about that, the council could be in a position at its meeting on April 1st to make an appointment and then moving forward and then authorizing the expenditure or the payment of what we budgeted for them.
Please, Councillor Kraus.
May I point out that the area in question with the drainage and the other issues is not located in the city of International Falls County.
The city has supported the activities in the cemetery despite it not being all in International Falls for decades, probably 5 or 6 decades that I'm aware of. So, but I think back to the city administrator's point, is there anyone on the city council that would be interested? I know we had these discussions during the budget that we'd like to have someone serving, and if no one on the city council that's interested, is the council okay with having someone, a citizen from International Falls, serve on that? And then lastly, I would say that we would want to also see a revised copy of the Cemetery Association's bylaws to reflect the city having an appointment to that cemetery board. And so, Councilor Kraus, please.
Administrator Anderson, did Mr. Stavseth indicate that their board has in fact met?
He didn't say that. I don't know how often they meet.
Per their bylaws.
I think they're supportive of the city being involved. That's just a conversation that he and I have had in casual conversations, is that they don't have any objection to the city having a representative on there. I think the purpose of his call is he's noted that based on the financial contributions that we've made in the past, and we're limited by state law to $10,000 a year, so we've been paying them $833 a month, and they haven't received that payment yet in 2019 because one of the conditions that the city council paid or put on our $5,000 contribution for 2019 is that we have this discussion and representation, closer communication with their board on the services that they provide out at Forest Hill Cemetery.
I would be willing, assuming they meet.
You going to serve?
Yes.
Okay.
But it's my understanding that they haven't met in over 18 months.
Oh.
And their bylaws indicate 2 meetings a year, which they haven't. It's my understanding they haven't met since 2017. So I would be interested, but...
There you go. And I would ask the city attorney, do you have any thoughts on our appointment or the bylaws, or is there anything else that we ought to be looking at to ensure someone from the city serving in that? Is there?
Well, I haven't looked at their bylaws, Mr. Mayor, and which I should do. I can't imagine that there'd be any issue with having a city representative on there. But we could get those bylaws and I could report back at the next meeting.
That'd be helpful. If we could secure a copy of their bylaws for the city attorney to review, and then I would certainly look to appoint Councilor Kraus, if interested, at the April 1 meeting. Thank you. Further, City Administrator?
I have nothing further.
Councilor Buller, please.
I'm totally on it versus somebody else, because then we can get a direct report from that person. Otherwise, somebody from Joe Public's going to is supposed to be here to give us a report, doesn't show up, so for that reason, I would definitely want to have a council person on.
Thank you. Other City Administrator?
Nothing, Mayor, other than the police report. The police captain chief is on vacation this week, so he's not present. I can respond to any questions, but as per normal, he's got his Zerka report that has detailed data on the police activity for the month of February.
Thank you. Any questions with regard to the Chief of Police report to the City Council for February? Seeing and hearing none, thank you, City Administrator. City Attorney.
Mr. Mayor, Council, we've been getting all the necessary documents and motion papers served on the owners of the blighted properties that are in court, and that hearing is scheduled to come up in about 2 weeks. And I will get together with Kelly and Adam to determine if there are currently some homeowners that have received letters that have not complied, where we should starting the criminal process against those individuals. So I will get in contact with them this week and develop a list. Probably would maybe give one last chance to those people, maybe give them 10 days or something, and if they haven't complied within 10 days, then they can expect a criminal complaint.
Very good. Great to hear.
That's all I have.
Thank you. We don't have any department heads here. I will go to the reports of mayor, council committees, boards, and commissions. Furthers from committees. And I would just bring to your attention the North Couchiching Sanitary District has on their agenda for Wednesday that they are going to consider adopting a motion to do a peer review of a project that was done by an engineering firm, and I really do not know that there's good reason for spending anywhere from $4,000 to $12,000 for such a peer review, and have outlined that just for information to the City Council, and as well we'll be presenting that, or having that presented at the meeting on Wednesday morning. I will not be there. I'm not able to attend that meeting, but know that it's on the agenda, and we'll ask that this information be presented to the board members. Other than that, I don't think I have anything else under my report. I would move to the audience. Anyone, again, in the audience that wishes to approach the council? Mr. Johnson, please.
I just had a question here. I have a study done by Environix Analytics as funded by Menards Corporation as to the population demographic of the falls. What is the city's current plan to deal with the shrinking population? This has a 2024 projection, as well as the history of population growth in the falls. There's about 6.73% decline each year since 1990. So I'm just wondering what the city's plan is to deal with that in the future. If it continues in that way, judging by the city's budget, the city's already not doing super well. So,
well, I would be pleased to respond. First of all, I think we certainly will know better what kind of decline we have had in citizenship in the city come next year when the census is done, and that will be April 1st of 2020. The census will be conducted, and then sometime after that we will learn exactly what the number of citizens are. And then secondly, council has been having discussions with regard to some annexation, both city properties and outside properties, where we may look to annex some places of residency and hopefully increase our population that way. Other members of the council wish to comment on that?
Well, I would just say, you're absolutely right. We are shrinking as a city, and it's interesting because the county is shrinking as well, but the county is shrinking at a lower pace than International Falls, and I think we're all aware that people are moving outside the city, and one of the things that could be accounted for that is the services of a city are being extended past the city limits of International Falls. You can see that with the sewer that's going out to Dove Island at this point, and we are shrinking as a community, we're shrinking as a county, and there's going to be tough choices that need to be made in the future, but I just can't get over how the fact you're here and asking really, really good questions. I appreciate it more than you can even understand.
I would build on what Councilor Drobas said, though. I don't think we're different from most of rural Minnesota. Most of rural Minnesota is seeing the same type of decline of residents in cities, and in fact some cities are virtually evaporating. They're disappearing.
And may I add one more thing? And you seem to be really in tune with what's happening in our community. And if you remember correctly, in the last election, we had asked for a 1% sales tax. And part of that 1% sales tax that we had asked for is because we are a regional hub of some sort. I mean, we have Little Fork, we have Ray, we have Canada, we have people that live outside the county that all come to International Falls to do their shopping at our local local businesses. And that was one way that the city had looked at how can we as a shrinking community be able to provide more infrastructures on our roads, streets, water, sewer, and be able to kind of get a little bit more funding from people outside the city of International Falls. So that was one step of how we can build our infrastructure without taxing the citizens that are still living in International Falls.
Just to continue on that really quick, the study done by the analytics company went through a 3-mile, 1 mile, and 5-mile radius of International Falls, as well as a little bit farther out than that. It seems to show that even with the annexation, it shows that even in that 5-mile radius, outside of town, even towards Rainier, it's losing population as well. So my question would be, even though you'd annex those areas, the population may increase for a little while, technically, for the falls. Is there any plan to do anything to keep maybe the younger generations from moving to bigger cities such as, say, Duluth, just due to the extra recreation and stuff that they have there?
What do you want? I'm not even kidding. That's a real question. What do the youth want? It's engaging in these types of communications that we need to hear. We actually have a community meeting next week on recreation, and that's sports and other stuff in our community. But what is it that you guys are looking for?
I'm just looking for more variety in the town. Basically what we have is, if you don't want to work in PCA, you have to work in a retail or customer service job. There's not really much else to do here other than the small community college, or to move to somewhere else where they have a bigger college, or even more of a technology job.
I'm going to blow your mind right now. In the future, you can build in our community whatever you want to. It takes ingenuity on your part and help from the city and people around us. But it's people like you that are asking the hard questions, and the people like you that want to build and make a better future for us that is going to actually do it. So if there isn't a business in our community right now that you can walk in, you can build that. You have the tools and talent, and you're not hiding that from me. So whatever you'd like to see in this community, it's you and your friends and your classmates that are going to see what our future needs to be. And I don't think there's one member of this committee that won't give everything we can to try to help you. We can put you in the right room with the people that can help, with business owners that have built something themselves. We can get you with KEDA to help you get funding through some of our local banks and facilities. And we will get you mentors to try to get you to be able to grow our community, because I'm finally over the hump, man. I'm finally old, and I can't do it. I've started businesses in our community, and we need the younger generation to step up and make this community your home. So you tell me what you want, and we're going to work through it, because it's people like you that are going to make our future considerably more bright than it is today.
You're a very intelligent young man. We can all tell that. You're going to go far in life, I believe. And I think people like you can improve this city with your ideas. You're asking questions. You're in the right mode. I think all of us appreciate that you're willing to come in and sit down before this council.
I think there are other opportunities besides Packaging Corporation of America, though. I know that the local Customs and Border Protection had openings for agents over there, and so I think one needs to look around and see if there are openings at various places besides just retail and the paper mill.
There's multiple healthcare opportunities in town that are going unfilled as well. So there is a lot of opportunity. And one interesting piece I will point out on your study is, I don't disagree with those figures, but an interesting figure you should look at is the number of households versus the actual population, because that's the telling piece. And the reason I bring that up is because we don't have the the families that are having 8, 9, 10 kids like we did 20, 30, 40 years ago. So the actual number of households is the same. We just don't have that humongous birth rate that we had all those years ago. And if you look back historically at the larger families in the community, you don't have those huge families anymore like you did. So that's a telling piece, is the number of households versus the population.
Well, and I think to add to that, Councillor Kraus, we also have folks who have moved back here and purchased homes. They may be part-time citizens living here 4 or 5 months of the year and then living somewhere where it's warmer and so they are citizens of somewhere else, but they have got a place here and they do business here for a good part of the year. So, Dwayne.
I'd like to add for a gentleman about your age, in the mid-70s, decided to sell electronics out of his garage.
Entrepreneurship.
And that is the key to any community, is entrepreneurship. That, like we said, 80% comes from within your community and 20% comes from outside. So you tell me how you're going to change the world and I'm going to help you.
I think with the households thing, it also shows here that the households are declining as well, even for single family and just the total number of households has declined as well as the family households, and it's projected to decrease as well by 2024 still.
Oh, and I'm not saying they're not decreasing. It's just that it's a different rate. That the large families, I won't use any names, but we can all think of families that had many children. It doesn't work that way. My own parents both came from, they each came from 5 children families, yet they only had 2. So my wife came from a 5-child family, we have 2. So that piece is changing.
You're coming back on April 1st, right? Thank you.
Good to have you here. Thank you.
And just to let you know, I went away and I came back. I'm just saying, I did. I spent 10 years away and then came back. I know there's more of us in here that did the same thing. So there is opportunity.
Thank you. Would just point out from the agenda that the Great Northern transmission line piece of information is in there, and then reminder that the town hall meeting on recreation is scheduled for next Monday at 6:30 p.m. here in the council chambers, and our next regular city council meeting is Monday, April the 1st of April. Thank you. Further to come before the council? If not, we'll stand adjourned. Thank you.